Moving abroad has been quite enlightening. It's been quite the lesson in identifying gaps, being very flexible, and definitely stress testing the business. In this final episode, I want to share a quick plan of how you can start to identify where you are causing the bottleneck because so many things in your business are dependent on you as the founder. I'm Dr. Nadia Brown, founder of the Doyen Agency and host of the Sales Culture Unfiltered podcast. And in this episode, I am wrapping up a three-part series where I share lessons learned during my move abroad, but also a quick plan to help you start to make those adjustments in your own business. And the good news is a move abroad is not required. Tune in. Welcome to Sales Culture Unfiltered, the podcast where we get real about what actually makes or breaks high-performing sales teams. I'm your host, Dr. Nadia Y. Brown, a sales culture and communication architect, and I work with sales leaders to engineer high-impact teams that hit their numbers without burning out or breaking down. On this show, we dive into unfiltered conversations with sales leaders, industry experts, and high-performing teams about what it really takes to drive revenue, retain talent, and build a winning sales culture. If you're tired of surface-level advice and want the strategies, challenges, and hard-won wins that actually matter, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. When I was in corporate, one of the jobs that I held was I was project manager. And one of the reasons why I liked being a project manager was you put together this plan and you have all these different people doing all the things. And then there came a point when it was go time and now you're executing the plan and none of the things that you thought were going to happen happened. Okay, maybe that's not exactly true, but there was this element of I know that this is the plan that we laid out. And I also know that it's not going to go according to plan. Like there is going to be something that is going to happen that we did not account for, or we accounted for, but we didn't want to happen. And now we have to make adjustments. And moving abroad is a lot like that. You put together this plan. There are things that you hope happen. There are things that you have zero control over. And you just move with the plan and you have to remain flexible. It's probably one of the reasons why I like that job because even though technically you did the same things, you just every day, but you just never knew what was going to happen from day to day. So you had to be ready to deal with the fires and the unexpected things. And it just kept it fun and exciting. And moving abroad is different in that, oh my gosh, this is my actual life and what is happening. But it wasn't necessarily that bad, but there were definitely those things that came up that I wasn't expecting, those things that I hadn't accounted for, and now I need to pivot and adjust. And when you're talking about looking at your business and identifying those areas where it's like, you know what, I think I need to make some adjustments and maybe pulling me out of some things or, putting a different process in place. That became very, very clear once we moved and we were boots on the ground and we were actually trying to implement those things. And it became clear in that there were some choices that I needed to make in terms of whether or not I was going to honor the bigger vision in terms of one of the things that we had decided as a family. So it wasn't necessarily the business per se, but there were decisions that we made as a family that if we're going to make this big move, there are things that we would like to see differently as a family. And there were things that Nadia had to do to honor that commitment. And honestly, that was hard. But it would definitely, but that further highlighted issues because there were things that I just no longer could do in the same way if I were going to truly honor the commitment that I'd made to my family. And that was very important. And so when you are looking at the business, and again, you don't have to move abroad to do this. We honestly would do some semblance of this almost every year. I won't say every year, but we started to really see the need to identify what was working, what might need to be adjusted in the business as we go into the new year. So typically Q4, things kind of naturally slow down a little bit going into the beginning of the year. So that was a great time for the team and I to look at, okay, What are some of the things that we have identified that have made our lives very challenging this year, and how can we address them and adjust them? And we would take the time to do that. But then when we were looking at Nadia moving abroad, there were some bigger questions that arose because now we're not only are we looking at the business structural changes and processes and systems, but we're also looking at how Nadia actually moves in the world and honoring, like I said, the commitments to my family. So, what does that process actually look like? If you're like, okay, Nadia, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. And again, you don't have to move abroad to identify that, oh, wait, I may want to make some changes. Like, there are just some things happening right now that aren't working. It's demanding on my time. It could be impacting my health. There may be some other things happening that that are no longer in alignment. And I think that that was the big thing for me. I could no longer deny that there were certain things that just weren't in alignment. There were some things that hadn't been in alignment in a long time, and I just refused to address them. And this was that sticking point or that catalyst that was like, you can no longer deny this. So with that, so I want to take to today, I just want to give you a really high level process, if you will, of how to address this, how to start moving through this so that you can then address and move through these different things. Now, here's what I will say. This is not a one and done. This won't be something that you can do next week and it'll be complete. Like this is an ongoing process. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that because I think sometimes we just want it done and over with. That's also not it. It's even a question I received on a comment on LinkedIn. Like, and I see that this is a lot. Like, where do we get started? So I want to answer that today. Where do we get started? How do we get to it? How do we do this? Because there's a lot that can be required of you. And when you're already being pulled in a lot of different directions, this just feels like one more thing and it can feel heavy. And that's not the goal. That's not my desire for you to feel that way. So the first thing is I really want you to take a moment to pause and reflect. That may feel like, wait, what? I don't have time for that. I felt that way a lot. And once we had moved and we got to this place of, there were just so many things that we needed to get done and in a certain time frame. So moving abroad is not just, it can be, and depending on the country that you move to and the visa and all the things, like there are a lot of things that are dependent on certain decisions that you made prior to. But in our case, our residency process started in America. So we had started the process. There were some things that we could do and got done prior to getting on the plane and coming here. However, because of the residency that we applied for, there were things that we had to do once we were in the country. There was no option. So we had certain things that were done, great, check. And then there were certain things that we had to do once we got here. So when you get here, that means that there is this little top clock. It's almost kind of like running in the background of you have these days counting down of when you need to have this done, or else your visa is done, right? So we had that. And then there were other things that we were doing. So we had made the decision that we were going to try schools here before we looked at possibly doing homeschool. Like I know some people just go straight into homeschool, but that was not a decision that we made as a family. So we had the school thing, and then that kind of dictated where we would live. So we had a housing thing, and we needed to have an actual real address. It's part of our residency. So there were things that we needed to get done, right? And then there are just things, there were some medical things that we had to do once we were here. So we had to figure all of that out. Like, where do we go? What is the price? What is the process? When can we go and all of that. So we're going through this. And then one day, as we're kind of doing the things and things are good, I realized, oh crap, for our FBI background checks, they have to be within the past 6 months. And we were now coming up against there was a second clock that was counting down. And that clock was going to run out before our actual official clock for immigration was going to run out. And I looked at my husband and I'm like, oh. So yeah, there were a lot of things. So I say all that to say that when we got here, there were just a lot of things that were demanding our time and our attention, and we really had to prioritize. And then I also had things that were going on with the business, and we were doing all the things. And then we got to a point where all of it was done. Residency is done. We have a place to live. Our daughter is in school. The big things are like, whew. And there was this natural pause of, I think I just need to take a breath because this has been head down for months of just get this done, do this, do this, do this, do this, just kind of running through our checklist. And it was this thing. And so it also kind of aligned with our daughter going on break. So she had a 2 week break. And I was like, you know what? Instead of me pushing against, like trying to get all these things done, having our daughter at home all day with us, let's just take a super light schedule, very few commitments, very few expectations, and I'm going to be productive and just hang out with our daughter, watching movies, swimming, whatever. And that is what I recommend for step one is to pause and reflect. Because one of the bigger questions wasn't so much whether or not I wanted to, whether one of the bigger questions wasn't whether I should adjust certain processes or systems. Like there were gaps that we identified. But before we started addressing the gaps, there were things that I need to identify. Is this even aligned? Does this align with who I am today? Does this align with the vision that we are moving forward toward? And does this continue to make sense given all that is happening, not only in my personal life, globally, in the economy? Like, do these things continue to make sense before we start putting in processes and systems and all the things for something that we're going to wake up one day and it's like, this doesn't even align anymore. So I invite you to take a moment. It may not be 2 weeks. It could be a weekend away, time to just reflect and be honest. I think that's the other thing, being honest. You have to be honest. Over these past couple of weeks, my accountability partners and I have had these conversations because you see things, whether it's just on social media or from other colleagues. We see things when we're behind the scenes working with our clients. And you just have this moment of really like being honest about what it is that you want to create and how you want to create it, that how you want to show up versus how you've seen others do it. And just because it looks successful doesn't mean that that is the way that you should go about it. And so there is this moment where you have to pause and you should, I invite you to do that. You should pause and reflect, but also be honest. And that was probably one of the big things that we'd had also during this, and it just aligned, where we were just having these really honest conversations around what that looked like. And part of that, we were watching and reading about a lot of different successful people who were sharing on their launching their Substacks or just sharing on their different platforms around building these big businesses, and then it just being a hot mess behind the scenes. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to do that. And what does that look like? And so I invite you first to just pause, reflect, be honest, and then go from there. And then once you've done that, then you really just start to identify like, where are those areas where I am in the way? What are the things that I could easily hand off to someone else? And what are those things that maybe a little more difficult, but I don't have to do them? And then what are the things that I get to keep? And that is the first thing. And so if you were looking at breaking this out in 90-day chunks, I would say that those first 30 days, pause and reflect, be honest, and then just go through the identification process. What are those things that I can definitely hand off? Do I already have the support in place? Whether that's an actual person, it could be AI, like we have so much support now with AI and bots and agents and all the things. So does that mean that I can have something built? Do we already have something built? And how do I move forward? You don't have to make all the decisions, but first, during that first 30 days is really just identifying where are those things that I can let go. And the reason why I'm spreading it out isn't because I'm trying to elongate this process, but I also understand that you have other things that are happening. And it feels daunting if I'm just like, just stop everything and do this now. So give yourself the space to think through some things, to jot some things down and be able to walk away, to be able to come back and adjust because it's an iterative process. And when you're being honest, you have those moments when one day you're like, that really isn't it. Invite your team. If you have team, invite them to share from their seat. So if there are certain things I'm looking at, I look at my team and I'm like, well, what about this? And what are your thoughts or what's your input? And I feel like one of the things I've done well is giving my team that permission, that space. Like I try not to be, but my way or the highway. And I value their input and I let them know it's valued so that they can share that. And then I can take it into consideration. Sometimes I'm like, yep, yes. And sometimes I'm like, well, let's see, right? And it's that iterative process. And so I want you to give yourself time of really pausing and reflecting. What are the things, where are the areas that this definitely needs to adjust? Then you may even put it in order of importance because there you may identify that there are certain things that we really need to address this first. And then just kind of put that in an order of importance and put together whatever timeline or plan that suits you. Like there are no hard and fast rules around this, like just giving yourself space. Because here's what often happens, and this is what I see, is when you get to that space, so by the time people get to me and they're like, I'm ready, I know I need to shift this. One of the biggest challenges we have in making that happen is the lack of documentation. Hands down. The lack of documentation. And then the second one is a really close one, is their preparedness mentally, emotionally of letting it go. So if you already start this process even before you need to get there, that just sets you up and makes it easier once you decide that, okay, I'm ready to hand this off for real. And I know clearly what that will look like. So then the next 30-day chunk is really starting to document it. So pick one, just one, not 12, one, and begin the transfer. So you want to start to document the process. You want to start to identify where all of this information is going to live. Again, identify who I'm going to hand this or off to, who or what I'm going to hand this off to, who's going to do that, and then begin building that relationship in that process. Again, it can be iterative. So one of the things that we do in my business is a lot of times I record. I will talk it out, create a Loom video, or I record. I either just talk it out and get it out of my head, and then I can transcribe it, or sometimes I just share the video with the team. I'm like, here you go. And then they can run with it. And then we can put it in writing and you document it that way. We can take the transcript and document it that way. If it's a process where I'm actually walking through steps of the way that I do things, if there's something that I'm like, I like this and I want it done in a very specific type of way, then again, a lot of times I can just record what that looks like and then we can take that and we can start the documentation. And oftentimes those are really quick. I just pick the one thing and I start to walk through. I send it to the team. We can check it, go through it, hand it off, test it. I think I shared this story in one of the previous episodes for this particular series, like even around like when we launched a podcast and we had certain things in place and it was done. And then there was that place of there was an email that went out and I was like, I don't know that I would have said it that way. Or there are things that I felt were missing, and there were things that I wanted to add to just kind of add that extra. So it wasn't bad. The email was fine. And there were things that was like, I think we could take that, add a little razzle dazzle. So let's do that. So that takes us to the last 30 days of this process. Is now that you've identified it, you've been honest, you're starting the documentation process. You may have even handed it off. The last 30 days is really to test and refine. So whether it's a bot or it's a human, let's walk through it. Let's actually test it. Maybe you're actually implementing it because a lot of times the business is just going on, right? Like we don't have time to just create these in a vacuum. And honestly, although sometimes we don't like it, that is the best feedback. Going back to, my life as a project manager, it was fun to create these plans or these ideas or all these things of how this would work. And sometimes honestly, in a slightly a vacuum, right? Like you have this project team, you may have some experience, but you don't know what it's going to look like in this particular environment and at this particular time with this particular group of people. And you're in this, this little bubble and then you launch. And then you're no longer in the bubble because now it's implemented, it's being tested and refined, and other people are engaging with it who hadn't been in the bubble with you. So honestly, sometimes the best way to do this is with real live clients in your real life actual business environment, to let it be refined and you get the feedback. And I know sometimes any of us who are recovering perfectionists, or we're just a little type A, and we're like, I just want this to be right the first time. So it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't the end of the world. And we just simply made the adjustment. And we were able to make it quickly because one, I wasn't creating this from scratch. I had this, and we just made some quick refinements. And it was just a quick, you know what? Here's how I would prefer this to look. Let's update the process and let's keep it moving. And that's exactly what we did. And so just want you to get quiet and get honest, but then also just don't hold so tightly to it being right the first time. And I get that that is easy to say for some of us, but it's so true. And just allow it to go through the process because your clients will give you the feedback. Be prepared, and also be prepared to have it go well, but also be prepared that it might not be perfect until you guys have had time to truly tune it and refine it. And don't always be so quick to just jump on your people. I think that when we look at relationships sometimes, especially as leaders in our businesses, and we have spent so much time being in our heads, and then we bring in other people who don't live in our heads. My husband and I have had this joke a lot with one another because I'm like, you just started a conversation with me, and I think I missed part of that, and vice versa. I do it to him too. And so, but we also can do it to our teams where we have this conversation that's been going on in our heads, or we've been running this business for years, and now we're bringing someone in new. Well, they don't know all that unless we've documented it and really made it clear. Then we can't, and we shouldn't now jump on that person because they didn't read our minds. Okay. Now, if it's clear, that's a whole nother video. Well, we could do a series on that once we get the documentation, the process, and the systems in place. But while we're in this iterative process, we have to extend the grace across the board and just jump in and be like, okay, hey, this is what I like, or I thought this was going to work in this way, but now that I see it, um, I don't like that. Let's make these adjustments, right? So there's also that part of it as well, of just giving yourself the space. I think sometimes, especially as women, we can just be so tightly wound of just getting it right and doing it perfectly and all the things. And entrepreneurship and being a business owner is messy. And when you work with actual other humans, it gets messier. And not because people are trying to be messy, but just because people aren't us and they do things differently and they see things from a different point of view. And when you bring things out to the world, you have all these different viewpoints or ways of seeing and doing things or interpreting things. If you've ever written an email or post and you had someone look at it and walk away with a completely different understanding, you're like, where did that come from? Then you understand that. So as you're putting this together, take the time to really not hold so tightly to it until you've had time to test it and refine it and do the things. And even then, like I said earlier, it helps to spend the time to also review. So setting a time, regular time to go back to processes and review, does this still work in the way that we thought it would work or in the way that we want it to work? Just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean we should continue to always do it that way. But this is how you can get started. And let me start to identify these things that I need to get out of my head, and I need to hand off, again, whether it's to a human or to AI. We have so many tools at our fingertips now. It's a beautiful thing. And now I want to document the process. I want to test the system. I want to refine it, add some razzle dazzle. Then once you identify one, then move to the next. Or if you get through one more quickly than the other, then you can do the next. The reason why I don't want you to try to do all the things is then it just adds another project to your plate that you may not have the bandwidth for. And honestly, it may not be the best use of your time. Like some of these things are important, but there is order of importance. And so start with the things that are the most important, they're going to have the most impact, and then work your way through, especially as they align with your big vision. And don't be afraid to let go of the things that no longer align. That has also been part of this process as we have moved abroad. Has probably been one of the more challenging ones is the letting go. Not only do you leave and there's this grief or this letting go or this change or shift, but there's also this is no longer aligns for any number of reasons. This is no longer in alignment, and we are going to make the decision to let it go and adjust as necessary. So don't be afraid to let things go as they no longer align, and take the time and give yourself the space to make the adjustments so that then you can implement the things to move things forward to help pull you out. But it doesn't have to be exceptionally overwhelming unless you wait until you get to that point in your business where I need to have this done yesterday and we aren't prepared. So this is a precautionary tale of the things to do on your path to letting these things go. And now if you're in that place of, OMG, I need to let this go as of yesterday, then again, that's a different video. That's a different conversation. Just call me. All right. So thank you so much. Again, this wraps up our series of moving abroad. This move abroad has been exciting, yet challenging, and also very enlightening. And it has been very interesting to meet this new version of me, but also to really honor what this whole family life shift will look like. And once I let go of the I should be doing this way and I should have this done by this date, and we got through it, and then it was like, what do I get to create now? And what do I get to create that creates this amazing experience and with my family, but also with my team. Like I feel like my team and I are closer now, and with my clients, but in having it all work more cohesively and not feel like this part of my life is competing with this part, but there's more of an integration. And not that we won't have some bumps in the road, but it's a lot less stressful. And one of the beautiful things, I was talking with some friends this week and just sharing, one of the things that I've noticed is I sleep better. I can sleep at night. It's a beautiful thing. Um, and that was one of those things I just hadn't really thought about. Like I didn't move like thinking I was going to sleep through the night. It was just like, this is the life of a business owner. So those little things that we're now noticing, even from a physical standpoint, that weren't necessarily on the list, but I won't change it. I won't give it up. Like I won't be like, oh, I regret being able to sleep through the night these days. So just those little things really make a difference. But I invite you to, again, set aside some time, even if it's only 30 minutes, and just say, where are the things that we can adjust? That there are things that are happening right now in the world that just make you want to go like, what? Seriously? And okay, how do we best prepare for that? In that, do these things that we're doing, do they continue to align? Do they continue to make sense? How can we make things better, make things more efficient? And how do I protect me as the business owner, the visionary, the leader, to make sure that this can still function if anything happens to me, but also making decisions to, reduce the chances of things happening, especially like illness. So going through that process, I invite you to do it. I think it will make your business a lot less stressful, but also it will increase the revenue and it will increase the amount of money you get to keep, like all of those things. Also moving these things forward because you're not being pulled in so many directions. You'll actually get to show up and do your best work, stay in your zone of genius. I know you've heard that before. And being able to move things as you would want them to move in the business to get the results that you desire to get. So thank you for this episode. Thank you for allowing me to share more about my journey as we've moved abroad, and stay tuned. More stories and lessons to come. This is Dr. Nadia signing off. I'll see you soon. That's a wrap on today's episode of Sales Culture Unfiltered. But the conversation doesn't end here. If something sparked your interest today, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit our website at thedoyenagency.com.
untangling.com to explore how we're helping sales teams build cultures that last. And if you found this episode valuable, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow sales leader. See you next time.